Good morning, ma'am. Good morning, classmates. My topic is all about maritime meteorology. What is maritime meteorology? Maritime meteorology serves the practical needs of surface and air navigation over the oceans. Then we have a type of air masses. Weather is controlled by a variety of factors. One of the most important is the Earth air masses. Air air masses are huge parcel of Earth with specific characteristic. What is the interesting about the characteristic of an air is that not only do they describe the air mass, but they also tell you where you can find that air mass on Earth. Air masses can be divided into two main categories based on whether they are found over land or water. If ang mass is makita nimo siya sa overland is gitawag ni siya og kanang continental air mass. If ang air mass makita nimo siya sa over sa tubig is gitawag na siya og kanang maritime air mass. So, continental air mass occur over the continent and maritime air mass occur over the water or environment. Then, naatay ka ng six type of air masses. So, number one is ang maritime tropical or MT is nag-feature na sa moist and warm or hot air. Number two is ang continental Arctic or CE nag-feature na siya sa dry and very cold. Then, maritime Arctic is described na siya sa moist and very cold. Then, maritime polar or MP is nag-describe siya as a moist and cool. And continental polar or CP air is dry and cool. Then, ang continental tropical or city is ang dry and warm or hot. So para masabtan gyud about sa air masses is nakoy video man ni siya ang kanang how weather form.
An air mass is a large body of air that has similar temperature and moisture levels. Different types of air masses are categorized by their temperature and moisture levels. For instance, tropical and polar air masses are categorized according to temperature. Tropical air masses are typically warm, and polar air masses are typically cold. The two types of air masses that are categorized by moisture level can be described as continental or maritime. Continental air masses are typically dry and form over land, whereas maritime air masses have more moisture and usually form over water sources. Air masses circulate and move in the atmosphere. The air masses move vertically as warm air rises and grows less dense, and they continue to move vertically when the air cools and sinks after growing denser. Conversely, air masses move horizontally when air from high-pressure areas moves to low-pressure areas and creates wind. There is constant high pressure over the polar regions due to the presence of colder, dense air. However, a low-pressure system sits along the equator due to the presence of warmer, less dense air. The pressure difference causes the air to flow from the poles to the equator. If this flow of air becomes stationary due to a small pressure difference, it takes on the characteristics of that region. There are four types of air masses, which are categorized by their moisture levels and temperatures: continental polar air masses, continental tropical air masses, maritime polar air masses, and maritime tropical air masses. Continental air masses form over continents. Because they form over land, they tend to contain less moisture. These air masses spend a lot of time over a continent before global winds push them along. There are two types of continental air masses: continental polar and continental tropical. Continental polar masses form over colder continental regions, and they tend to be cold and dry. Conversely, continental tropical air masses masses form over continental regions and carry warmer, drier air. A continental air mass that affects the northern United States develops over ice-covered land, such as northern Canada. Sometimes, polar masses will dip all the way to the southern United States, bringing cooler, drier weather with them. However, in the winter, polar masses bring extremely cold conditions. On the other hand, tropical air masses that form over the southwest United States bring hot, dry weather in the summer. Maritime air masses are found over large bodies of water, like oceans. Since these air masses originate over the water, they are full of moisture. They often carry precipitation when they move into an area. The two types of maritime air masses are maritime polar and maritime tropical. Maritime polar air masses are cold and moist, while maritime tropical masses are warm and moist. In the United States, maritime polar air masses form in the northern Pacific and Atlantic Oceans. When these air masses enter an area, they bring cold, moist air. In the winter, these air masses can bring snow or rain, and in the summer, they typically bring cool, rainy, and even foggy weather. The maritime tropical air masses that affect the United States form over warmer waters, such as the Gulf of Mexico and the Caribbean. They bring mild, cloudy weather to the eastern United States in the winter, and they bring hot, humid weather in the summer. The next time you experience a warm, fair day without clouds, or see a storm approaching your town, you will be familiar with the types of air masses that are heading your way.
Sea waves is produced by local wind. It is travel for a short distance. Di siya pareha sa swell is mag-travel siya og kanang long distance. Then we have swell. Swell waves which are generated by strong wind that moves away from where they are generated. It becomes swells. Then it is able to travel few thousand miles. It is also possible to experience high swell and are where when local wind are calm. It is also carry more energy and it is long wavelength. Then we have sea waves. So sea waves is produced by local wind. It will travel for a short distance. So di siya parehas sa swell is maka travel siya 1,000 miles. Then local wind, calm means low waves. If waves carry enough energy, it becomes swells. Else just disappear. Then it is a short wavelengths. Sea waves is produced by local wind. It is travel for a short distance. Di siya pareha sa swell is mag-travel siya og kanang long distance. And swell is weather generated waves and swell, which have a big impact on vessels because wind produces waves in the ocean, and the size of waves depend on the strength of duration of wind and how far the winds blew without interruption. So swell are group of large waves that outrun the wind or storm that generated them. Ships and sea may also face rag winds, unusually large waves among the smaller waves. This can cause a lot of damage. And winds occurring together during the storms are particularly dangerous and includes hurricanes, also called typhoon or cyclone. These are very large and damaging storms, and they are high-speed winds rotating around the calm center called eye. Predicting the formation, strength, duration, and path of hurricane is important part of the maritime forecasting. Then natay storm surge. Unsa man ang storm surge? So, storm surge is also known as daluyan ng bagyo, is the abnormal rise in the sea level that occurs during the tropical cyclone or bagyo. Moni ang abnormal sa pagtaas sa balod sa dagat tungod sa bagyo tungod kay epekto ni siya sa kusog na hangin na dala sa bagyo. Ang mga bagyo nga naay kategorya ang tropical storm pataas. For example, ani niya is ang super typhoon, typhoon, super typhoon storm, tropical storm or tropical depression. So mo ni ang pwedeng hinungdan nga naay storm surge. So katumbas aning upat ka tawo nga posible ang pagtaas ani niya. Mao nang tungod sa mga taas na balod is mo na siyang ginabawalan nga mobiyahe ang mga sakyanang pang dagat kay basig. Then we have type of fogs. We have 6 types of fogs. Then number 1 is advection fog. This type of fogs form from surface contact of horizontal wind. This fog can occur with windy conditions, warm air, moist air blow in from the south. If there is snow or cold moisture on the ground, it will come contact with the warm moist winds. This contact between the air and the ground will cause the air blowing and to become cool. Then the dew point rises and create high humidity and forms of fogs. Na siya example sa advection fogs. Then we have radiation fog and or ground fog or valley fog. So this fog form when all solar energy exits the earth and allows the temperature to meet up with the dew point. So the best condition to have a radiation fog is when it had rained the previous night. So this help to moisten up the soil and create higher dew points. So this make it easier for the air to become saturated and mag-form siya og fog. So kani kakita naman siguro tani kanang sa mga valley fog. So mo ni siya example sa fogs nga makita nato. So kung sa advection is horizontal siya, sa radiation fog is kanang pataas. So then we have upslope fog. So ang upslope fog is form na siya adiabatically. So moist air flow towards slope, then as air rises with the terrain, it's called to condensation. Mo na siya mag-form na siya og kanang fog slope. Mo na siya example anang makita nimo sa sa mga mountains. And we have steam fog or Arctic sea smoke. So commonly makita nato ni siya sa mga lakes. So mag-form ni siya during the fall season. Then sea fog. So sea fog is commonly known as mixing fog. The fog is formed when warm moist air overrun the swallow layer of cold air the surface as well the warm precipitation into a cold air. Na siyang example niya. Pakita niyo siya sa kuan. Lastly is the frontal fog. So mo ni siya yung example sa frontal fog. Ang fog niya is nara sa ubos. Then we have maritime meteorology. Maritime meteorology collects weather and ocean data from weather station, satellite, and observation results. They feed this into a computer, interpret the output, and produce the analysis chart. This information is used to predict weather changes and provide a record past weather from which calculation and large-scale changes in the global climate can be made. Weather forecasting methods. So forecasting can be done in a multiple ways. Satellites are important for tracking weather across the oceans and other bodies of water. Meteorological satellites are dedicated to tracking weather include those that orbit at the poles of the Earth, stationary satellite that monitor just one part of the Earth's surface, and satellite that orbit the entire planet. So, ang satellite is nagathered siya information about sa clouds, temperature of the air and water, currents o kanang mga dust mga dust storms, ice covereds, and more. So, importance of using maritime weather forecasting. The information provided by Marine Weather Forecasting Agency is important for preventing accident by avoid storm or other related hazard. The consequence of not using that information, of ignoring it, or misusing or misjudging the information can be serious. Maritime forecasting is an important tool for anyone in the maritime industry, from cargo ship, captain to crew, or small fishing vessels. Weather can be highly unpredictable, but good forecasting can help you make better choices and avoid the kind of disaster can be lead in the tragic accidents, injuries, lost cargo ship damage, and lost lives. Then, how to voluntary observation from ships, weather buoys, weather satellite, numerical weather prediction have been used to diagnose and help forecast weather over the Earth oceans areas. Weather buoy Weather buoys are instruments which collect weather and ocean data within the world ocean, as well as aid during emergency response to chemical spill, legal proceeding, and engineering design. So it gives direction and formation warn of hazard and obstructions. Mo na siya example sa weather buoys that mark control the area. Mo na siya example. We have weather satellite. So, ang weather satellite or meteorological satellite is a type of Earth observation satellite that primarily used to monitor the weather and the climate of the Earth. So, kinomonitor nila ang weather conditions, kung okay pa ba, kung naabay moabot nga bagyo, or naabay ka ng mga kakulian nga moabot. So, muna siya ang kanang rules sa weather satellite. Then, numerical weather prediction. So, ang numerical weather prediction uses mathematically models of the atmosphere and ocean to predict the weather based on the current weather conditions. So, mo na siya ang ihang rules.